have the opportunity to moderate. That means I will shut up and listen to them. The paper session dedicated to fashion and education. We will start with the presentation of Sharifa Jamaldin. I'm sorry for my Italian pronunciation. From Fashion Revolution Belgium, and the title of her paper is Creating a Fair Fashion Mindset, a Fair Fashion Department. We will then go to Choklat, from the College for Creative Studies in Michigan, and the title of his intervention is the Shoemaking Starter Kit. Then we will leave the stage to Andrea Cammarosano from Royal Academy of Fine Arts in Antwerp on Relational Creativity, the workshop as a space to stimulate creative, technical, and interpersonal relations. And we will end, last but not least, with Collette, Depeyre, Véronique Perret, and Daria Richter, which is in the audience, sitting in the audience, but but she's part of the, sorry for that, of the paper from the Université Paris Dauphine. And the title of the paper is Rethinking Fashion Education, How to Give Confidence to the Students Who Want to Become an Actor for Change. So each presenter will have 15 minutes time to deliver the presentation, because we would like also to leave some space for your questions and answers and the debate. So I will give the stage to Sharifa if you want to start your presentation and introduce yourself. Thank you very much.
Please don't start the timer until it's jam-packed full of information. Hopefully not redundant information, but interesting information. Hi, I'm Sharifa. I have a kind of a complex background, but I have a media background. Now I'm working along in the team of Fashion Revolution Belgium. But this presentation here, I'm very honored to be here to see and to discuss how can fashion save the world. So I'm going to be presenting, I'm going to highlight details of the paper I wrote. And the purpose of the paper is to stress the importance of fashion ethics and to give some ideas of how to accelerate the transformation in schools to save the world. The study of ethical fashion is the wonderful study of weaving, in a sense. Just a quick story about when I was in university in the 80s, late 80s. I would tell people I'm studying home economics, and people would say, "Oh, you're studying basket weaving," and I would say, "Yeah, actually, that's true. I am studying basket weaving, textiles, fashion. It's a very complex topic, and it has science, design, etc." And it was a bit of a derogatory term, actually. There was this kind of hierarchy in universities that, being a lawyer was better than being a home economist, or there's this kind of hierarchy in systems. And that sort of feeds the topic of fashion ethics. Mahatma Gandhi believed in weaving and handloom, and the Khadi movement was part of a movement that shifted society. So I think fashion can save the world. As you can see here, I do regard spinning and weaving as the necessary part of any national system of education. So weaving is very important. Delete my goal, 3 goals here. The first is the goal of the fashion education and the fashion industry as a whole, is to delete pollution and exploitation. I'm putting these 2 topics up because pollution and exploitation are like, one is environment and one is people. Another point here is the deadline. there has to be a deadline. So the deadline of the UN is 2030. So how can we transform this system? A solution for pollution is this one. It's a video from Volbach, and it shows here, I don't know if they can play the video. It's only a short video here, and it shows the t-shirt from Volbach, and it's a compostable t-shirt. And it composts in 2 weeks. So I think this is a solution for fast fashion because they need a business model. So if clothes disintegrate in 2 weeks, that's a lot of money. You just have to buy a new t-shirt. The cost of that t-shirt is 112 euros. Okay, so the goal for delete exploitation in fashion, very complex. And sustainable education is fundamental in deleting exploitation. And it requires everything we know about humans, psychology, personal values. The solution for exploitation, surprisingly, is evident, and we know it from history of sweatshops. So fashion ethics works, unions, policy, and activism. And this particular picture is of a really cool organization that was formed by a few women who were self-employed informal workers in India, and they formed an incredible, huge union, very good union, and they did it themselves, the workers. The state of emergency, we need to announce a state of emergency. Similar to the pandemic. If we announce it as an emergency, I think solutions and ideas will come faster to people. How do we do that? Adopt different mindsets. Here's the next section here, 6 points. The main goal of ethical fashion is to give all students a foundation in fashion ethics. An ambitious goal, which is a bit different, is to have a fashion professional oath, like lawyers and medical, like doctors and nurses. They have an oath that you have to follow. And then in conjunction with that, a fashion ethics boards is also interesting. Ethical mindset, the most is, of course, everyone has their own words. That's, for example, courage to change, stubbornness, optimism. And we need sort of an ethical mindset because we will have more humanitarian disasters. So how do we care for each other? The business case for ethics, fashion, ethical fashion, or for a fair fashion department, or having this kind of department inside of faculty, is that actually, surprisingly, ethical businesses are profitable, and there are numbers to show that. So being humane is actually good business. Another point here is a fair fashion is actually a human right. So if you study it, it's a fundamental right to every aspect of the business, every aspect of being a designer. All are important aspects of human rights. And another aspect, let me keep going. Next point here is the for fair trade. What kind of topics can we look at in this curriculum of fair fashion department? We can look at different organizations. We have the World Fair Trade Organization, and they list out here on the screen the different components. So we have fair wage, respect for the environment, all the things that you can imagine. It's outlined here in 10 principles. You can also look to other. Organizations. There's a common objective. There's, of course, Fashion Revolution. You can just talk to and find out lots of information on this topic. Fashion ethicists is an interesting topic. The protective nature of ethical professionals, unions, regulatory bodies in the world should not be underrated. Because when it comes to profit, many companies turn a blind eye to malpractice. So having ethically savvy graduates and alumni, if you can connect with the alumni as well, can, yeah, they can give solutions. Hey, did you think of this concept, or this particular method of encounter objections to sustainability? Because there are a lot of objections still. Consumer groups work to identify malpractice and unethical behavior, such as greenwashing in marketing. So what is fashion ethics? This is actually surprisingly interesting. You wouldn't think ethics is interesting, but it is. It's multicultural. And what's interesting is ethics is okra in Akan. What does that mean? Okra is the Akan word for character. Ethics is all about character. And a very interesting paper was written by Kwame Gyeke from Ghana, a well-known professor. Another point here is the study matter of fashion ethics. Can be, you already know some of them, like animal rights, multicultural sensitivities, racism, religion, sizeism. It's quite interesting. And also related to fashion, we have climate justice, gender justice, cultural appropriation, intersectionality, decolonization movement. There are several reference books, and I was very lucky to study to find these books at the MoMu, at the Fashion Museum Library here, which has a great collection of books on fashion ethics. But that was just one level. There's a deeper and more complex level, and which is really exciting field of study where we are incorporating missing narratives, and we have all these various books as listed on the fashionandrace.org library, which are quite interesting. Supply chain solutions, we have interesting points here. I mentioned prosperity for all is a good business. A very clear, simple step is the living wage. So if you have this movement right now, it's the international discussion about living wage, which is better than a minimum wage. It's a very clear solution to the supply chain in fashion. Other solutions are small, medium enterprises. Oh my goodness, it's thousands. So linking to them is very important. Here in Antwerp, we have Duke, and that's an image of one of their projects. Very cool, interesting project that integrates newcomers from around the world and their talent in textiles. The rest are listed there, like fashion economics, links with the banks to help support different, in the African diaspora, different aspiring designers. Large enterprises also have great, interesting solutions that universities can adopt, or higher education institutions. And we have here Quizzer and Ulula. There are software solutions, and one is using educational, relatable trainings to train millions of factory workers, and they call them facility employees, all the way into the farms, on the farm level. So that's tier 3. They're able to reach with this digital technology, with iPads, with smartphones, etc., to get training. And it's just a short training, very entertaining, and very in every language, and it's relatable. And imagine doing the same thing to teach ethics, fashion, just send out these really interesting short videos, and people learn it quickly. Also an interesting part with Ulala, they're doing anonymous calls, so you can call and complain about the supply, what's going on in the supply chain, unfair wages, safety, and hotline for students would be kind of another example of a solution. So students could call in and speak about what's going on. I want to discuss decolonization. What is a great sustainable solution? Just have this hotline. Maybe it could be an AI hotline. Who knows? Connecting universities is very interesting for academics. I don't know if you guys realize that there will be 300 million graduates by 2030. So imagine connecting with each other on campus. don't know, if you just word of mouth, hey, guess what? We need to solve this. How can we solve it? Let's work together. 300 million people. Right now it's 130 million people. Just WhatsApp them, talk to them, talk to each other. Yeah, and also you can reach out to alumni. Same, giving training, diversity, equity, inclusion training. Connecting universities on another scale would be to partner with universities. You already do that on a small scale, but imagine doing it on a large scale. Yes, 30,000 universities, and that's just universities. And then, yes, I think that's clear. And the websites are not being utilized. I've searched on websites. It's so hard to find information on the university websites about sustainability, about their ethical concepts. I think it's a misused or missing opportunity to extend knowledge, information on websites. The curricula in detail here, I'll skip through quite quickly, but actually I have to say there's a lot of work being done by academia. Interesting one is, one difficulty is that it's heavy work to change curricula. There's already a set pattern, there's already budgets, so I understand that. So one university center of, you guys know this, of course, Center of Sustainable Fashion, have separated from the main faculty. So having a separate department is a solution. Having diversity and inclusion clubs, and then working with the skill sets of each university. In the American side, they have an incredible knowledge about diversity, inclusion, and equity. From Arch College of Design and Business in India, they have an incredible knowledge about artisanal and connecting with tradition. And there's also competitions that can be held or challenges. Cost-free MOOCs, massive open line courses. Transformational design is an important concept. A great foundation is Forum of the Future, and they're working with state-of-the-art concepts in design. So transformational design includes social labs, working across different knowledge, expertise. So you combine people from science, people from fashion, people from, so cross-culture, sectional work. And creating, a video, I think. I don't know if we have time for a video. So this is an example, we won't play all of it, of a video that shows the future. It was done by Future, the organization Forum for the Future. And we missed the mark, actually. This is from 2010, and they're discussing what we've been discussing for so many years. So so this is just a glimpse of what they were imagining would be happening now, or in 2 years, or 3 years, 4 years.
Welcome to 2025, a healthier, wealthier world, where fashion's influence is reaching further than ever before. Climate change has topped the global political agenda for over 20 years, and low-carbon technologies like wind and solar have really taken off. In this lean society, everything that goes into making a garment is designed for reuse and remanufacture. Leading brands get the public to vote online for which styles go into production, saving energy and waste. But in the factories, unrelenting automation is leading to mass unemployment. Technology has also revolutionized textiles produced.
Yeah, so essentially, as you can see, this was kind of a scenario that you can create to see what could be. I think it would be really great to sort of focus on scenarios that are ethical, not only about environment and sustainability, but also, the optimistic view as well is an important part. So the challenge for universities would be to come up with these scenarios. I think this would be a fun assignment. The last part here is only 2 screens. We have 2 points. And habits. How do you change your habits? These are just ideas. One of them is to simply add the word or the adjective sustainable or ethical to everything. It's kind of a fun exercise. So whenever you say, oh, I'm a designer, you say, I'm an ethical designer. Oh, I'm a professor. Oh, I'm an ethical professor. It just shifts the mindset and creates a new conversation, new habits. Embracing, there's many points here, I won't go through all of them. Embracing both majority and minority is important. It's not, the discussion right now is to talk about the minority in the group or the one that is less powerful. But it's also important to acknowledge those who are powerful, because they are not always, I don't know, they're not the bad guys or the demons. Everyone is part of this package. So embrace everyone, I think, is a very good mindset. And challenges are really important. If you want to change systems, you need to change habits. And in order to change habits, one of the tips or tricks is to do a challenge, a 90-day challenge to do this. We have 1 year to do that. So working there. And then the checklist is to keep in mind on university campuses, different ways to accelerate the project. And one of them is having these kind of exercises like revive a textile tradition, like in Antwerp. It's a lot of, or in Belgium, there's the flax tradition. Working with flax is brilliant, bring that back. Another one is place sustainable posters everywhere. I saw a few here, so there's a few like really pushing these envelope of like huge signboards everywhere. Kind of a side idea that I'm just thinking of now is I think all of the fashion shows right now, every fashion show should have signs. Like, because when you look at the clothes, they're walking by, you don't know if it's ethical or not or sustainable. So I think every show should be loud and clear. This one is super 100%. This one is close or not. It kind of sends a message to the wider community. And I think everyone has to create their own checklist. This is just an example. And my last part here, 2 videos from examples, an interesting kind of balance between 2 people who were working both at the same time on this topic, one in a different part of the world in Bangladesh, and that's B.B. Russell, and then Catherine Hamnant on the other side. I don't know if they have the videos, and I don't know if I have time. I can also skip. It's only those 2, and then one more slide and we're done. But essentially showing that there's 2 different parts of the world doing different things, and we have pioneers who've been doing it. I don't know if I press play.
I'm in Colombia. I'm like 100 kilometers north of Bogota, in the house of one of our artisans who is absolutely fantastic, Flor.
Alcanzan a salir unos 3 sacos con esta oveja grandecitos.
So today I want to show the incredible work of the artisan who really had a magic, because it's a beautiful art. She's doing that, then she will wash it, then she will spin it, make the wool, then she will make the sweater. It's an art, we need to have it, we need to preserve it so the next generation can continue, so the world doesn't lose this beautiful art. My interest to come here is this.
My name's Catherine Hamnett. I'm a fashion designer and I've been campaigning on sustainability for the last 30 years. In the 1980s, we were on a complete roll. We did some research and I thought, it's going to be fine. Cut to the kill, every single raw material was having a horrendous impact on the environment. People I bought hundreds of thousands of meters of cotton from were saying, why should we make organic cotton since you're the only one asking for it? Choose life, that was our first t-shirt. Save the future, save the bees. Clothing purchasing is driven by desire. You know, they've got to be desirable, they can't just be sustainable. This coat is recycled polyester padded silk because I was trying to find an alternative to fur, and it actually works. I think it's important to, as well as campaigning, to actually prove that it can be done.
And thanks, let's do the last slide here. Yeah, so fashion activism is trending. Universities with their reach to media, millions of students, policymakers, can be the hub of transportation. Collaborating with activist groups and NGOs is crucial. And Fashion Revolution gives people who love fashion, that's very important, a way to delete pollution and exploitation. So who do you know who wants to be part of the fashion revolution in education? Yeah, thank you very much. I'm open to any questions.
I think there are a lot of questions because you did put on the table so many points. But I would suggest, if also the audience would agree, to go on with the presentation and to group all the questions afterwards, also because I would like to create a discussion among you, all our presenters. So just to give the right time to everybody, I would like to invite Choklat to present his paper. Thank you very much.
It sounds like there's a fashion revolution happening right now outside. Well, first of all, thank you very much for the Responsible Fashion series for accepting our installation proposal and inviting us to come to, me to come to Antwerp. My name is Aki Choklat. It is my real name. I'm not a Japanese girl or an exotic dancer. Maybe I am inside, but I'm a Finnish Moroccan man. And I'm the chair of fashion design department at the College for Creative Studies in Detroit. So greetings from Detroit. I prepared this installation in the Winter Garden with, we call him the chief engineer. He's an old GM car engineer making cars who fell in love with accessories and shoes. And now he works for our department, and we are so lucky to have him because when we're missing something, he'll make it. So that's Tom Carbone. He's actually in another conference, so we are kind of like active in conferences right now. So just a little bit about our department. We've been around for about 5 years, and actually 6 years, and we specialize in shoes and handbags. I was invited to start this department. They had nothing in this particular college in Detroit. It's been around since 1906, actually. So it is a historic college in American standards, not like Antwerp, which is like, what, 1660 something, I don't know. But it's founded on craft. So they thought that it would be nice to bring in accessories education into the school where craft is the main point of view. So I was very honored to be chosen to be in this program, and I decided to stay there actually. And we are actually launching apparel this fall, which is a great opportunity for us to do something different. And I'm learning so much from this conference of how we can go about doing that. So I looked at the themes and the sub-themes of the general call, and I was trying to see like where could we fit? Because we have a very sort of a basic idea that we did and basic idea for installation, but these were the things that really did connect to our concept, which is transition and change, disruption, creativity, craftsmanship, and technology, and breaking the mold, breaking down stereotypes. And what really triggered our concept was this. I don't know if there's anybody in this room who does not know or recognize this symbol, the Zoom symbol. So it really created this, if you go back to March 2020, these kind of emotions of fear, fear of the fact that we were distancing from everybody physically, and also the fear of, and the lack of motivation. I'm sure I'm saying the things that everybody experienced, but it was just important kind of to remind that these were the things that really triggered us into the project. As I said earlier, oh, and by the way, I was interested in talking about earlier the cost of education, and as everybody knows, it's very expensive in the US. We are not for profit, we are private institutions, we have a lot of very, very wealthy supporters. So the money they give us, we distribute it to the students. So we are trying to make it the best possible system for everybody. Yet we have contracts as well. Our syllabus is a contract with our students. And we had to make sure that even though we had to make this great escape from the college campus, that we had to fulfill the learning outcomes. This is always the thing, like, did you fulfill the learning outcomes for the students? So all of these things we can actually do online, except the fact that creating three-dimensional objects became a bit of a problem. As I said, we specialize in shoes, and we make shoes. Students have to make shoes from beginning, from every part of it, from outsoles to heels to sewing. They have to be wearable. I come from the kind of a little bit of the avant-garde thinking. I was in Moda with Linda for years. So I wanted to find kind of a middle ground in America where they still have some commerciality in them, but also are not boring. So so students have to make shoes and bags. They have to be wearable. That's like the #1 thing. And this is Josie's graduate work from 2021. We were lucky that we could actually go back to on campus after the initial scary few semesters of being in Zoom. So yes, how do you teach footwear when you're not in the industrial machines? So we developed a footwear starter kit. And I know there are many there's the sneaker kit, there's all sorts of make your own shoes kits on Etsy. There's the traditional American moccasin that the American Scout boys make when they go to scouting. But there was one problem. That second semester, the students had to learn how to make a high heel shoe. And we couldn't find anything that you can actually make a high heel shoe at home. So that's how we started developing this idea. And I have a video that we produced for the conference that can explain it maybe a little better than me standing here. So if you can play the video now.
How do we teach shoemaking remotely? Our #1 concern was how do we deal with the freshmen and the first-year students. We thought that the #1 thing that's important for students to understand is what goes into shoemaking and how an actual shoe is made.
COVID as an inspiration became our goal. We had to find a way to connect to these students because we are a making program where you put your hands on the material.
So we developed this idea around a 3D printed blast or a 3D printed form. We also 3D printed other components that we could send to students in this little box that had also glue, thread, tape, needles, and all the things that they needed to create this kind of a prototype or a drape that they could then use to further develop their ideas.
We were able to use some of the highest technology that we possess, that is software, to create patterns and then create something that had to be hand-stitched together. The students were then allowed to do anything they wanted to embellish.
Important thing was also that because we were in Zoom all day, and it was really important for us to communicate to students that it's kind of an extension of what we do in the studios, in their homes, and just kind of say that, we are in this together, and we can learn even though we're not physically next to one another, and even though we don't have the super high level machinery that we have right here behind us. So you can actually learn a lot from the craft of assembly and the craft of making. The other important point was that you can use this form that you have as a tool to inspire you to draw collections. So it's always good to have something in front of you, drawing from observation, and just let your mind, fly and create things based on what you have made.
The students are amazing. They're fearless. And I'm always impressed with this generation, how they simply are able to take what they're given and move forward. They did a great job.
This is kind of open source information. If anybody's interested, we can, we'd be more than happy to share the information with the world.
So it really helped us get through the first initial semesters, especially with the younger ones that we actually never met. I just met them last semester with, even with the mass, but like in physical, in physical world. So the first version we did, well, here's a picture of the first kit we sent to the students, and the first version was with a wedge. It was the easiest solution for the students to make something at home. The idea was also that no, you cannot go clubbing in them, but you can at least stand them and take photo shoots and kind of understand what goes in a little deeper, what goes into footwear. And just quick note, all the leather is from scraps. We have all the material is donated. All the glue is water-based, non-toxic. We actually are not allowed to use the normal shoemaking leather glues in the building, and so we try to keep everything as sustainable as possible. So. This is the new starter kit, because we have developed it further with the heel, because that was real problematic. And the number one thing we sent to students, again as a PDF to save the paper, was the instructions how to do it. And one of the things they learn is a classic saddle stitch, how to put the pieces together the same way that Hermes bags are made. So detailed instructions, explanation of the parts. It's by the way open source information, so I can give this to anybody if you want later. But explanation of how the whole system fits together. We have all these digitized in our system. We have industrial level cutters. And the idea was that if a student wanted to make really complicated things, they can ship it back to us, and then we will do the finishing, because I was still on campus with my colleague. And of course, I had plenty of time. Well, actually, I didn't during lockdown. I was busier than ever. But I tried to assemble it, tried to understand how it works, if there were questions, and it was a lot of fun actually. And then I also did a little bit of coloring with masking tape, and I even bought stockings, which I do not have in my household, just to kind of see how they would look. And the most complicated part, and by the way, we sent this all over the world. We had students in China, which was quite great to be communicating with them. I felt bad because they had to wait until 1 a.m. to have a class with us, but we have students in California, in Miami, Florida, who did this for us. But if you know about the shoe industry, the shoe last is impossible to, it's the form that you build a shoe on. It's impossible to get in America. It's very expensive. So we import everything from Europe and actually also from Mexico. In this next picture, you see our last library that we have in our materials room. So it was very expensive to ship it to students, but also hope to get it back. And to be honest, I don't think I've gotten a single one back yet. So we thought we had to find another solution. So we 3D printed lighter versions of it. So this is the one in the red, and we made a couple in black as well. And then we sent the hardware, all the materials that go into shoemaking screws, top line tape, insole, outsole, wax, cotton yard, glue. I think this is the lining actually, and then the upper. So this is what they would get at home. And now that we've been making so many of them, like you saw in the video, I started thinking, well, what's the future of this? Because we are on campus now, and students are making far more complicated things. Well, we actually have high school students that visit from really low income Detroit public schools. So we're doing workshops with them, and they all of a sudden kind of like understand how much fun fashion and accessories can be. And this could be expanded to other areas as well. We don't know yet, because we're still developing it. But anyway, you see the final product in the winter garden in the exhibition space. And by the way, if the shoe is not spinning, I think it might have been out of battery, but just put it on again. Maybe somebody turned it off. So what did we learn? Well, we learned that merging digital and craft was smart. We understood that students love making things, but if there's no cell phone or computer nearby, they're not so enthusiastic. When we combine the two, the results are always better, and this is what we're trying to do now. We don't want to be 100% cloth-free, but you know, a little bit of the hybrid existence is what we believe in. And I feel like we found a new teaching tool that really involves not just looking at a lecture, which you're doing here. I should have passed around the pieces to you. And also that making is relaxing, and it's even sort of a contemplative practice. And even if it's simplest forms of stitching two things together, well, actually it was more than 20 things together, it can be relaxing. So this is my presentation, and thank you very much for your attending.
Thanks a lot, Aki. I would leave the stage to Andrea Cammarosano. Please keep in mind all your questions for after. Thank you.
There was a problem with my file, apparently, but I have another copy. I can send it again the email. A dramatic start. Should I send it by email again?
Do you want to make a shift if your colleagues are ready? Andrea, do you want to make a shift in the presentations?
Right. Yeah, that's
just in case, if you wouldn't mind.
And I send you. Okay. Yes. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So I'm sorry if before I was mistaken the names, because the author of this paper are three: Collette Depeyre, Véronique Perret, and Daria Richter-Widhoff. Daria and Collette are presenting. Yes, before I was mistaken. While Véronique is in the audience. So the stage is for you. Thank you.
Hello everyone. So I'm Collette Depeyre. I'm an assistant professor in Dauphine in management. And so the presentation is a work together with Andrea Richter, who's a fashion designer and a professor at École des Arts Décoratifs in Paris, and Véronique, who is a teacher in sustainable development at Dauphine University as well. So this presentation is based on a program that we have been developing at Université PSL for 4 years now. It's a collaboration between 3 institutions within our university that is like kind of a federation of universities. So one institution in management, another one in design, fashion and textile design, and another school in science and engineering. And so we started this collaboration 4 years ago and have built a program in fashion and materials that is crossing disciplines. And this conference for us was a good occasion to come back on that experience that we have started, and the master has been transformed 2 years ago. So we are starting the second year of the new master program this year. It's a program that is interdisciplinary. So both the students and the content are interdisciplinary. We have students from with a background in management, textile and fashion design. Okay, thank you. And science and engineering. And the content is, so of course they can't learn everything. So we have focused the content on the transformation of the fashion industry and stakes, of course, around the sustainability. And we welcome international students, and some of them are working in apprenticeship, which is a French possibility for students to be in a company about half of the time during the year. They have a contract with, and so they have a wage and also the fees that are paid by this system of apprenticeship. So about half of the students are following this possibility. And so what we did for this conference, well, it was an occasion to reflect on the experience, and also it's based on a program we have been involved in for 2 years with the Rotterdam Erasmus University and Gdansk University as well in Poland, European program that was Reframe Fashion. And for this project, we did some interviews with professionals, also academics, about what should we change in fashion education. So we have used a lot this work that we have done in the past years to build the program, and we have also worked with. So Véronique is not involved in the program, and it was a good occasion with the conference to discuss with her, and she had a focus group with our students to see how they were living this program. And we have done so. We have focused the content on the transformation of the industry, and the students are really coming for that purpose in the program. And one core question that we have every day working on this is how do we live up to their expectation and accompany them on this journey. To describe you, so we have built a program based on 3 main guidelines. The first one is the idea to rethink creativity in the industry. It has been, it's a subject that has been talked about already today. It was mentioned this morning that creativity very often is focused on the idea of fashion design, but it may be much more expanded in the whole value chain of the industry. And to rethink the full system of consumption and production, there is that need to look for creativity everywhere in the value chain. So that's a building block for us for the content of the curriculum, and to also find new sources for creativity and meaning in for students and for the industry. So we have focused the content on seeing creativity at every step in the value chain, You mentioned spinning and weaving, so starting also with agriculture and going through all these industrial steps. So this includes the design step, but it really goes from nature to retailing in the end, and also afterlife of products. And we have also focused a lot on use to have always that question of functionality in mind. To work on the creativity and have in mind the audience, the users, and the people that live with these garments that we are talking about. Another core element to work on that creativity is the materials that are a common thread for a lot of projects in the program. The challenge that we have with this approach, one is, we really want to have a diverse profiles of students in the promotion, and it may be difficult to attract traditional fashion design students in that type of curriculum, because they may feel that it's not going to be focused on creation every day. And so how to attract that type of students is one question for us. We have some, but we can feel that sometimes they feel they don't have enough space for practice. They have, but that question of space for practice is something important. There's also that concept for job search, because the program is focused on new jobs that may not exist already, so it may create some anxiety as we don't have any traditional course in management, for example, to train for marketing and fashion, and it's more reflecting and thinking about how the system is transforming. So how do you prepare then students for the market? And also one core concern that we have seen, and that you may experience, I guess, with a lot of your students as well, is that surge of eco-anxiety that just comes suddenly. It's always there, and but sometimes it can just boom in the program and just stop the collective. What should we do? So it's something also by talking a lot about sustainability and all these challenges that we are mentioning in the conference. Sometimes it just may stop action. So if you want to say a few.
Yeah, I just wanted to add more from as well the practical moments we have. I organized a blog an introduction, what is creativity and how can we use creativity to make a change. And I ask everybody to bring a garment and an accessory who everybody considers as a fashion item. And then we discuss the pieces, and the pieces, they stay for 9 days or 10 days. Every day there are different lecturers or people from the field and people with experience coming, and they have a look at these garments. And this is I think a very tangible way from management, science, we have social science students, we have engineer students, we have fashion students, we have textile students, to look at it, and you see how rich and complex fashion is, through looking at just a garment. You look inside the garment, you look at the fabric, you look at the colors, you look at the style, when it's made, from what it's made, where it comes from, you look at the label, you look at everything, and just do this, look at a garment, tells so much. And then look at the choice everybody does to say, that's fashion for me. That's already a great starting point to see and to somehow create a common understanding, or to show how vast everything is and that there's a place for everybody to develop something.
So a second building block is interdisciplinarity, as I mentioned in the introduction. During the interviews that we made during the Erasmus Plus project, this was mentioned a lot by professionals, the idea to break the silos and being able to work together and build that collective that we're talking a lot about. And there is also, in relation to the subjects related to sustainability, really that need to have an approach that is transversal. At first, with the first format of the master, we had only one module where we had students coming from engineering and management and design. So it was just for one project that they were working together, and they really liked it, but it was really too short because it takes a lot of time to experience and to be able to just work with people that are different from you. And so that's why we transformed the program for to have the students during the full year and for the full curriculum to work together. So it's really the idea to build long-term interactions between the students, so they really get to learn the language of another discipline and to think together and have also to make some propositions in some elements where they are not experts of. And so we have focused the content on exploration, so more like early stage of reflection. It's not about launching really initiatives on the market. It's more some stage before. And the content of the program is focused on a few sessions with some expertise on elements of knowledge in the value chain. Some elements of methods, but then it's each student that is going to choose the subject he wants to work on and develop deeper knowledge on. So it's both a common base for the students, but that is not too broad because that maybe then like the problem of interdisciplinarity would be to do everything. So we focus on several things, and then each student is going to develop his or her own project. And what we have seen after this first year of experiencing that with the students is especially the fact that, well, it's a different journey depending on the discipline you come from. And for management students, they come to the program with really that idea to, you were mentioning how practice also can be something great for the mind, and you were saying also to relax, and they have this envy to see what design is about. So for them, interdisciplinarity is something that is exotic and that is opening their mind. While for designers, just like having to tackle questions about management, it's more constrained. So they don't come to interdisciplinarity with the same enthusiasm, but at the same time, they have the willingness to do that. And for engineer, they have a lot also of curiosity to go at these borders between disciplines. And so the journey is not the same depending on discipline, and we need to adapt to that in terms of methods. And there's always that question, and Véronique has the same problem with students in sustainable development, not only in fashion, because it's very transversal. There is that idea that, well, you will know a lot of things, but in the end, you have the fear that you don't know enough. And so as you can't learn everything, how do you deal with that uncertainty? And it's very much related to this eco-anxiety that I was mentioning, as they can't master everything.
Yeah, as well, what is very important in the whole interdisciplinary concept is that the students, they're discussing a lot together, and I think that is what helps us a lot. And as we were discussing or heard this morning, how important it is to have the feedback of students and to involve students in the system. We are living this concretely because we are building up something which is quite complicated, and it's a lot about different cultures, different educations, different knowledge, and to combine them is on one hand really rich, on the other hand it's very detailed. So we as tutors, I mean, we probably didn't tell you enough that we are quite small. We have a small group of students, because if we would have big groups, it would not be possible to really follow up, and we have a quite individual individual way to coach them or to teach, to talk to them and to discuss, and sometimes in groups, sometimes in mixed groups. We pay attention that everybody comes from different backgrounds, which are in groups. So we train, each other constantly in this way of exchanging and moving forward somehow.
And so the third and last pillar for the program is the engagement through collectives. We really try to have a lot of collective projects, and even if it's also important, of course, for all the students to develop their own expertise, but to do that with other students, and also in relation to the fact that they will have to work with other people later on. It's never a personal journey. And we also ask them, well, to really engage in the master program and to engage for change by being involved in the life of the master, being involved in some events around the master program. So they also are active participants of this curriculum. They have interactions, well, of course, between them. That's at the core of the program, but also with the tutors, as Daria mentioned. We also have some collectives with professionals that come 4 or 5 times a year and spend 3 hours to just discuss with them collectively and individually. And we have some projects as well that we do in partnerships with companies, as it's the case in a lot of programs. What we have seen, it's quite difficult to embark the students in projects that could be with fast fashion companies, for example. Very often they will pick other projects and say, well, I just don't want to work with fast fashion brands. And so it's a lot of pedagogy to see how to involve them and see how they can be actually have a change in different place in the industry, but not force them for this project if that's really not the direction that they want to take. And yeah, and then we also have to navigate around a lot of institutional complexity, like being a transversal program in a federation of universities is something fascinating, but also very challenging every day.
Yeah, and what was we just had, we do always in September, we do kind of a presentation exhibition, so students would present there, because for the marketing students and engineer students, and as well for some design students who wish not to have a practical or an object at the end, they they write a dissertation, and we ask them to somehow give body to this and to make it tangible. So how you make from a theory a concrete object, and then in a group, we discussed how can we a circular model, fashion circular, place it in an exhibition with individual projects linked to this concept. So this was a great experience, and I think it's really important for everybody who is in theory to as well learn how to visualize things with a concrete object.
So this is it. Thank you.
Thank you. It will work. Otherwise, I'm just gonna make air science.
Dance.
No, I'll just use imagination.
Maybe.
Andrea, okay. Yeah, thank you. And I just move with the arrows. Okay, good. The pointer, okay. Okay, thank you so much, Natalie, and thank you, everybody. How do I activate the PDF? Okay, so my name is Andrea Cammarosano. I am the founder of a creative studio called Clutter, which is based in Milan. And I'm also a PhD researcher with the Antwerp Royal Academy, with the fashion department, and with the University of Antwerp. And I think this is a great opportunity to speak in this day. And this morning we have spoken a lot about systems, for instance, and maybe there's a problem with the PDF again. But I use a normal computer, actually. Oh, perfect. Okay, so what is interesting to me, speaking about the systems and the players we have spoken about, is how the systems communicate and collaborate with each other. And I'm going to offer very much a kitchen perspective. I mean, not a kitchen, like a fashion kitchen, which addresses precisely how we can create relations between the different systems and languages of fashion. Let's try. Okay, so creativity is an ability to move across dimensions, taking elements from personal experience, from technical and material resources, from social, cultural, and economical contexts. This is what the creative person does. And right in the middle of this triangulation, we have a golden spot for creativity. A place where things are expressive, they stimulate material and technical virtuosity, and they enrich the experience of social living. And I apologize if sometimes I'm reading, but I want to be sure that everything will, that I won't confuse you. But right in the middle of these interactions is also the golden spot for fashion, because I think this is the subject matter of fashion as distinct, for instance, from product, creating these enhanced expressions of the objects and rituals of everyday experience. Achieving this balance, to get in this point, requires not just the dimensions to exchange or work together, but to operate an understanding between each other. And in my experience in the creative industry, I've worked in art, I've worked in design and manufacturing, I've worked in education, and I believe, and I think many of you will have the same experience, we shouldn't give for granted that because people or dimensions are coming together, then there is an understanding of each other. Especially because in our system, the studio, the design studio, is separated from the factory, artistic languages are separated from technical languages, and in general, in our system, there is a tendency to the individualization of all experiences and the compartmentalization of all roles and processes. So I believe that the role of creativity in the future is to find ways to bring these dimensions together so that whatever the issue we're trying to solve, but diversity, sustainability, or whatever, it's an issue in which the solutions can come from these dimensions and these players working together. And I skip a few boring and abstract slides, which would just repeat things which we have said today, I believe. So definitely we need to create bridges and connections between systems. And the Relational Creativity project, my research with the Antwerp Fashion Department, is about creating a system in which the school, the industry, and the social environment will create hybrid systems and hybrid languages. I believe really that this is a change we could see in education and in the industry later. And the school could be the catalyst and the promoter for this system. Now, this goal poses intermediate questions, okay? Like our goal is to create this kind of environment for the school, the industry, by which I mean manufacturing and business, and the public come together. But there are two issues to be approached before. The first issue is which languages and methodologies could be used for these exchanges to be direct and mutual. And this is a key issue, I think, for creatives and for education. Specialized languages have a limit. First of all, they repropose the separation I have addressed, but also the students don't feel ready to work in specialized settings like manufacturing and business. This emerged also from preparatory interview to this project, and they feel they lack this knowledge, and this is also why they are in school. So this is a first issue to address and explore languages that allow a direct relation with the environment, even if you're not kind of a specific speaker of that language. The second issue is to rehearse the modality of the exchanges we want to organize. Schools already do this kind of exchanges if we want. There's stages and there's fashion shows, but these are kind of exchanges which we propose a separation of role and languages. So the exchanges that would really bring these dimensions together are those in which there is a hybridization of roles and languages, a mixture and a synergy between different players. And only once we have explored these subjects, we can set up this system and say, that we're bringing back these dimensions together. So the current state of the research is to explore these languages. And I feel that here is a focal point of what I am proposing, because what I believe and explore is that this methodology could start from personal expression. So something that, for instance, the Antwerp Academy has done for a very long time. But rather than seeing it as a goal, to see it as a resource, an operative tool to initiate processes and relations in different systems. Now, I have a belief in the possibilities of expression, which comes from my practice as an artist, a designer. I believe when you communicate, for instance, with garment workers, the tangible materials are always kind of where everything goes down to. But also, personal expression is the precious thing that a school like Antwerp, for instance, can nurture. It's a place where young people can experiment free, unbridled ideas. Another precious reason for starting from expression is coming from John Dewey's theory of experience. The elements that we are rehearsing to form these exchanges are the kind of visual and tangible elements which a fashion author recognizes in their environment and incarnates onto the body in the form of the garment. They are the elements that connect living experience and artistic expression, and they are the elements which are at the core of fashion's subject matter. But also these elements, and I think this kind of very small stuff, this kind of tangible elements, are also a precious tool in interpersonal collaboration. As Richard Sennett points out on his studies about collaboration, the role of the single musician in an orchestra is not of explaining the whole piece to the others, but to elaborate single passages or sounds in relation to how they are heard from others. And finally, the use of these sensorial small things is that, according to a social psychology of creativity, they act as intrinsic motivator. They increase engagement in task and interaction with the environment. Okay, so now I'm going to show with concrete examples which are the ways in which this kind of very small things can be arranged and used in a way that stimulates this kind of relational languages. These are activities that we are exploring with the Antwerp fashion departments, articulated around 3 focal points that could be seen in the future as progressive steps for a creative methodology. The first step, the first point, concerns something which I believe is very important, which is how visual languages are formed, or in general, how expressions are formed. As this great quote from John Dewey suggests, we live in a society that has made visual languages their main expressive form. But if we agree that the subject of fashion deals with living experience, then it is in physical languages that we shall find the root of expression, not just in visual languages. And so the activity we are exploring creates relations between the visual and the physical, between representation and embodiment. In this activity, the students improvise 2-dimensional composition on large scale, on human scale, and then transform it into wearable objects. In this way, they observe a direct relation between lines and figure on the 2D dimension and lines and figure on body and behavior through movement, performance, and portraiture. Another kind of activity is about exploring the environment, improvising with the resources around, or also recycling material from the school practice. So all these activities are not really based on sketching or illustrations, but on embodiment and performance, integrating the visual and the physical. Another similar activity is about creating relations between two different elements or two different colors, always observing them under the lens of body and behavior. So all these activities aim at stimulating expressive languages in relation with experience and with the environment surrounding. The second focal point concerns the transformation of these expressions into a technique. Technique is fundamental to elaborate, articulate, and replicate ideas. But its nature is not just functional, it is formal. The way the steps are arranged and described, the way the information is conveyed, endows technique of its own expressiveness. So in these activities, the student will form manuals of instructions around those improvised expressions. They will have to deconstruct them into unitary elements, what Senet was talking about. They will analyze the relation between the different parts and processes. They will address the replication and elaboration of these ideas. So they will form an idea what is the nature of technique, rather than just a learning of knowledge. The creation of these manuals shall be followed both by the teachers of artistic subjects and of technical subjects, ending also in the school this separation between, head and hands. And the writing of these manuals will allow the students to explore the space between expressive languages and technical languages. These manuals would be printed or digitally circulated around the school so that students try to replicate these objects, and the school will become sort of an open source factory, what Aki was addressing, a factory of collective minds and hands. This process, basically of construction and deconstruction of expressions around unitary elements, is fundamental to the third focal point, collaborative languages and processes. The design studio, like the orchestra, has a director, but other organizational models could be explored. For instance, bottom-up models. Not the orchestra then, but the jazz band, which unfolds a musical narrative combining individual materials along an agreed narrative frame. In this activity, the students start by sharing and collecting individual materials, and they use the tool of the mood board to organize this material, first of all, to form themes and working groups, and then agreeing on a narrative that could be developed. They will then elaborate the individual material according to this narrative, building sort of storyboards or visual stories. This kind of stories will be collected into zines or self-published magazines, which could be published again and circulated, this time not just in the school, but also outside the school, providing something which I believe is very important, an external frame of reference and of evaluation. So does the narrative work? Does the public get in the story? A variation of this exercise is using the same kind of bottom-up elaboration of themes to build material narratives, so collaborative objects and garments. And this is another example, and this again. And these are some examples of this kind of zines that we have already put together. One of them, done digitally during COVID, had 156 people working together, which was quite a challenge. Okay, so the images I've shown come from practices with different schools and courses, and also with my creative studio, Clutter, outside the school environment, so public activities. And as I said, what we're currently doing now is to structure this sort of activity in a more analytical way, to observe what works and what doesn't, and what kind of changes must be done. But definitely the test for these methodologies is not the school environment, it's those other environments that we want to organize exchanges with. So the manufacturing and business environment, and the public environment. So I will give an overview of what we're going to explore in this kind of activities. The first exchange is with garment workers and with manufacturing environment in partnership with local manufacturers in Belgium. I think that we tend easily to see artisanal making as full of poetry and industrial manufacturing as just mechanical. But this is also, I believe, because the expressiveness of industrial languages has been largely unexplored. So the sense of the activities we want to explore in school is that by building a bridge between expression and technique, we could travel it in both directions. The students working in this setting could produce expressions in relation to the languages, the experiences, the people and environment of the manufacturing place. And from this activity, the designers or the students could produce objects and manuals, which, that would be a language in which I think they can create together with people like garment workers, for instance, whose language is, I feel there's people that are cut out of what we call like the creative process or the expressive project, because they don't take picture, they don't sketch, they don't take illustrations. So this is an example of hybridization of languages that could, bring more people in the creative act, and let's see what happens. But I think it's interesting to explore. The second exchange is with the business sector. And also here, the difference of languages, we tend to think of business as a language of number. But again, the business of fashion is not just numbers, and it's not about products, it's really about narratives. And in this activity, the students will organize and elaborate those materials created in the manufacturing environment, but this time not in a magazine or a visual narrative or a material narrative, but in a strategic narrative. So a narrative which is addressing, for instance, the organization of labor to produce those kind of objects, the development of small runs of production. This time on the mood board, there will not just be the expressive or material samples, but also some hard data taken from the manufacturing environment, like labor and material costs or lead times. And in this kind of collaborations, the students should work with business students and also with professionals from the industry, creating a language that is taken from visual materials to like this sort of data, and also getting, the discussion, for instance, on the strategies that can reach real-world contexts. And it is about this real-world context that the third environment is targeted. So people and communities with whom the students will engage in relations that are social, cultural, and economical. I think that to understand economical transaction, one has to understand the nature of transactions in general, so giving and taking. And again, I believe it could be done in the most possible direct way. For instance, students selling directly or bartering, exchanging objects in street fairs, markets, fairs, but not only objects, because I believe these manuals of instructions and working in that way could allow the students to give workshops, to become, I don't want to say teachers, because sometimes it's kind of a bad word. But yeah, like giving the idea that you can share with people, not just products, but also you can share ways of making. So from the languages to the sort of exchanges, from all this information, we could finally start to think and to organize this system as structural partnerships and structural activities. And maybe this can become really an educational structure or a parallel educational structures. Starting locally, yeah, these are some of the questions we will need to address, but I hope in 3 years we will make a lot of progress. But definitely there's kind of objective, Barbara was speaking this morning very rightly about like contracts and, business models and all this stuff. The idea is that this system should not just be local, but also can be expanded to other ecosystems. With the clutter, we already have partnerships in Milan with the Comune di Milano, the public sector, the social services, and with secondary education. Because I think, we've been speaking of fashion education, and it's always higher education, but sometimes you feel that when people get to higher education, it's too late, sort of. And maybe there's a lot that can be done in secondary education and also in vocational training. Another project we have in Rotterdam is with the Hillevliet project of the Boijmans Museum, which is a campus in Rotterdam South, working with the community, local makers, and also with vocational schools, so professional schools. Voila, and the idea, which I believe in, is, starting from somewhere, and I must say, very small things, building a system here in Antwerp first locally, and then connecting it to other ecosystems. And I think, this is a great opportunity to start also planning this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we have a few minutes, but I hope it will not be a drama if we will go a little bit longer, because I think that all our presenters did a fantastic job. I would like just to put on the table a few keywords I grabbed from your different speeches, and then to offer our audience the possibility to interact on those or on to other things. A few things that came to my mind, for instance, when Sharifa was presenting, she was mentioning, and I'm very grateful for that, both the small, medium enterprises, but taking into account also the large enterprises, the real huge industry, which is more complicated to drive through in terms of sustainability. Aki did put on the table a very important and I think crucial aspect, which is the meeting between digital and craft, that is leading the future probably of any education panel. And Collette and Andrea were underlining a point when you create something new to attract students that are not clear, which is the ending path for the future in terms of employability, experimenting new studying path. Another point that Andrea did put on the table, I think there's more than a couple obviously for each presenter, but the collaborative languages, and I really appreciated what he was saying at the very end, talking about vocational school, that when you arrive sometimes with a higher education, it's too late. And this reminds me what Sharifa was saying about the foundation. So just to confuse the audience a little bit more, I would like to ask if anybody has a question for our presenters, or if you would like to start a debate across your different speeches, because I found some point of contact. So anybody has a question or want to interact with our presenters? Adrian? Yes, we need to use the microphone. Yes, here it is.
Thank you. First of all, a question for Aki, obviously. So is it right to say that this project was born out of COVID? And then how do you see it going forward? Because would it be a project you'd normally do with a second year students, or how are you going to interpret it in the future?
Yes, it was born out of the necessity to teach something very fundamental with the students during their COVID. So it was absolutely part of that. We have a beautiful department. You visited our school in Detroit, and we have all the technology imaginable until that March in 2020. And then all of a sudden we were like, now what? So it does definitely have a life of its own, I believe, in the future. I'm not really sure what it will be, but as I already mentioned, that we're going to use it with high schoolers just to get them interested in our program. Could it be something that we would do with the first or second year students? Probably not. So I think this is going to be more of a outreach kind of a thing. I lecture a lot, I visit a lot, and students are not always so interested in looking at my PowerPoints, but the minute I give them something to do, they all of a sudden become far more engaged.
I mean, it could be an international webinar you could be doing for students or school students on another side of the world, which are then linked with what you're doing, the outreach. to somewhere else that is a different destination.
I'd love to collaborate with Andrea again.
There
We
you
worked together before, so I really missed
I've just
him
put
and
you back
seeing his
together
work.
again. Okay.
It was amazing.
Thank you.
Any other question or comment? So, okay, I will make a question for all our guests today. You've been talking a lot about education, especially related in some cases more or less to sustainability, inclusion, and diversity. And I found that each of you was starting from a very beginning, foundation, Comune di Milano, working with younger students, and a master's level, so different level of interaction. Do you think there is something that we might consider in order to shape is not the nice word, in order to support the future generations to be activists in a positive way in the industry, not just in the craft, and when it should start and how it should develop? I know it's a difficult question because really I was concerned when you were talking about the concerns that some students might have when they face a master to develop such a process without knowing exactly where it ends up. Where do it ends up, and when you suggest it should start? And this is for all of you. I don't know if I was clear enough. No? Yes? Not that much. Because it's the complexity that you all went through during your presentations.
I mean, I think what is definitely giving a great motivation for the students, if you really try, or at least to give them confidence in what they have in themselves, because I believe if you teach something, you always, it must somehow respond to something which you carry in yourself, a certain need, or a certain vision, how you want to act in the society, and how do you want to connect with the society, and if it's not connected, it seems to be difficult. So sometimes you have to dig a little bit with the students to understand what it is. But when you find this point, then when we say you can really build your own profile, and you can build a positioning or to have something, and to become an actor with what you worked out. And in a way, the industry often is a step behind us, because they don't have the space to be a laboratory like we have, and we must continue to do this in a university, and luckily we can, so that the students can have a space and somehow be a step forward, and offer something new. Because I really feel that the outside world, or the professional world, is in demand. It never had been like this. I mean, when I did my fashion studies, it was said, you first go work in the industry and then you can say something. You know, nobody would care what your students would have to say. I mean, we had to fight to express and to say, yes, I have something to say, please. You know, it was not really, the industry was like even the big fashion house, you know, you just had to go and learn first, and then you had something to say when you learned. Today it's different. Everybody wants to see new ideas, and you want to see what young people have in mind. And I think it's a question as well of confidence and connecting with the reality, connecting with the society, and becoming actors of change like this.
Thank you so much.
I think in terms of what we could give to younger generation addressing this kind of growth, if I understood the question, I start from a parallel from the activities I've spoken about. So when I notice when the students make this kind of composition, then it's not a nice picture or composition. It may be they're not satisfied because they tend to think it has to be perfect, it has to be great. And then you say, okay, but wait until it becomes an object. And then you put it on a body, and the body is never neutral. It's always adding something. So it becomes greater, or less, or worse. And so when students get to appreciate what happens when things change, when they change context. And I think, this is something very important for younger generation that, as I said, they tend to have more static knowledge. And it is, in a way, saying, okay, how can you make with what you have? I think, Walter this morning was speaking about, Mustang wasn't there and there was no money, so what do I do? And he changed his business model, he changed his name, he had to have, I remember the people whispering in the showroom, it's Walter. Well, but this is what you have to do, and maybe it doesn't answer your question about how do you get to that critical point where you can make a critical change, but it's already, it allows you to know that things can change in context.
Thank you. Okay, Sharifa. Oh, sorry, but I think
basically in terms of activism, it's actually quite fun. There's a lot of, you can join groups and you learn a lot, and there's a lot of different ways to change the world, and it's from your own skill set, it's from your own passion. So use your skills to change the world. And there's an emergency, and that's how can I contribute to fix the problem?
Thank you very much.